by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net, and together we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavismiley.com. That's thetavismiley.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, Green Party Vice Presidential candidate and Professor Butch Ware reflects on his party's results this time around. We will ask Professor Ware what he thinks we can expect over the next 4 years and get his take on what resistance looks like. In our third hour.
When I die, I hope no one who ever hurt me cries. And if they cry, I hope their eyes fall out, and a million maggots that had made up their brains crawl from the empty holes and devour the flesh that covered the evil that passed itself off as a person that I probably tried to love. When I die, I hope every worker in the National Security Council, the Interpol, the FBI, CIA Foundation for the Development of Black Women gets an extra bonus and maybe takes one day off, and maybe even ask why they didn't work as hard for us as they did them. But it always seems to be that way. Please don't let them read Nikki Rosa. Maybe just let some black woman who called herself my friend go around and collect each and every book. And let some black man who said it was negative of me to want him to be a man collect every picture and poster. And let them burn those as they did me while I tried to live. And as soon as I die, I hope everyone who loved me learns the meaning of my death, which is a simple lesson. Don't do what you do very well, and enjoy it. It scares white folk and makes the black ones truly mad. But I do hope someone tells my son his mother liked little old ladies with their blue dresses and hats and gloves. That sitting by the window to watch dawn come up is valid. that smiling at an old man and petting a dog don't detract from manhood. Do somebody please tell him, I knew all along that what would be is what will be, but I wanted to be a new person, and my rebirth was stifled, not by the master, but the slave. And if ever I touched a life, I hope that life knows that I know that touching was and still is and will always be the true revolution.
I couldn't do it any better than she could in her own words. That's When I Die from Nikki Giovanni. And she has, in fact, made her transition a tribute to one of my favorite and most frequent guests over the years of my broadcast career, the prolific poet, visionary artist, and towering public intellectual, Nikki Giovanni, who passed away yesterday at the age of 81. Nikki was last on this program just a few months ago in August of this year. I know Nikki well, and I could sense then that we might be talking for the last time, publicly at least, and indeed that was our last public conversation. 2024 has been a rough year. For those of us who revel in black genius, we are losing these legends every week, it seems. We've lost some giants this year, and so we'll dig into the vault one more time and celebrate today Nikki Giovanni in our final hour. But in this first hour, two more conversations on the B side of this hour.
I accept the Nobel Prize for Peace at a moment when 22 million Negroes of the United States are engaged in a creative battle to end the long night of racial injustice. I accept this award on behalf of a civil rights movement which is moving with determination and a majestic scorn for risk and danger to establish a reign of freedom and a rule of justice. I am mindful that debilitating and grinding poverty afflicts my people and chains them to the lowest rung of the economic ladder. Therefore, I must ask why this prize is awarded to a movement which is beleaguered and committed to unrelenting struggle, to a movement which has not yet won the very peace and brotherhood which is the essence of the Nobel Prize.
On the back side of this hour, a conversation with the esteemed Dr. Claiborne Carson on the 60th anniversary of MLK's Nobel Peace Prize speech and how that speech was a turning point for both King personally and the civil rights movement collectively. We'll do that on the B side of this hour. When we come forward, we will commence today's show in dialogue with the president of the AFT, the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten. I'm Tavis, Smiley, glad to have you tuned in today.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
On behalf of her precious family, it is with profound sadness that KBLA Talk 1580 announces the passing of our beloved colleague, Robin Ayers, on Thursday, December 5th. Robin was a bright light. You could see her radiant smile through the radio. We all respected her immense talent, loved her jovial spirit, celebrated her love of family, and honored her faith in God. Our thoughts and prayers are with Robin's entire family, most especially her husband Rob and her twin daughters Brooklyn and Madison. We ask you to join us in praying for the Ayers family as they navigate the difficult days ahead. In her honor, all this week, we're broadcasting the Best of the Rob Report on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
Slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed, as you can tell. It's going to be a full show today as we work our way toward our final hour, celebrating the now late, great Nikki Giovanni. I can't wait for the third hour. I miss Nikki already. Let's get this show started today, though, as I promised a moment ago in conversation with the president of the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten. Randy, good to hear your voice once again. How are you today?
It's good to be with you, and I'm so glad to have listened to the honor that you did of Nikki Giovanni, so thank you.
No, thank you for your patience. I appreciate that. We got a little late start today, but it happens that way when we need to frame the show the right way. That's it. Let me make the most of the time that we do have. I want to go right to this. Donald Trump and those around him, certainly those who have been supportive and helped to write Project 2025, that same Project 2025 that he denied knowing anything about. Now he's hiring all the people who are connected to it. They have been nominated for major roles in his cabinet. They're using Project 2025 to find personnel to staff the government in this Trump 2.0 administration. So all those lies are now exposed, that he didn't know anything about it or anybody connected to it. But one of those arguments has been that he wants to abolish the Department of Education. And yet he's nominated somebody, Linda McMahon, who ain't got no business. That's right, I said ain't, as I'm talking to the president of the AFT, that's a school teacher herself. He nominated somebody who ain't got no business running the Department of Education in the first place. But I'm trying to figure out why you nominate somebody if you're going to abolish it. So tell me what you think Trump is up to here.
So I think that the issue around the Department of Education is a great soundbite, these guys have more money than God, particularly with crypto, and they have done a lot of polling, and this must poll well to get rid of the bureaucracy, and I suspect it polls well because the people think about the bureaucracy as testing or Common Core, and nobody likes a bureaucracy, but what really what they don't really know what they want to do, and I think that actions here are going to speak louder than words. And this is what I mean. Everything that else he has said about education, he needs some federal policy and to try and move a federal agenda. So for example, take things like career tech ed that I'm really big in, and I think we should be transforming high schools so that we give a shot to kids to, have stackable credentials so they can go into cybersecurity right from or advanced manufacturing or culinary, we see at a couple of these great CTE schools in LA or, the trades and be a pre-apprenticeship program. And have like apprenticeships and earn and learn right from high school, not from college or community college. We've had we've had career tech ed throughout the country for years. And, you have one CTE school in a district. You need kind of federal policy to make this the norm, not the exception. Mm-hmm. So he talks about that a lot, and so does Linda McMahon, and that seems to be something she's really into. So is that Linda McMahon going to show up, the one who wants the apprenticeship program like in Switzerland? Or is the Linda McMahon going to show up being, like Betsy DeVos, who, even though, she didn't know very much, but she wanted to just basically destroy public education and voucherize it and defund it. If it's the first one who's going to give people a shot and a chance and really help kids, then we're going to work with her. If it's the second one that's using it to try to destroy public education, to try to get rid of the funding, like for kids with disabilities, or get rid of the funding for poor kids that we have fought for since Lyndon B. Johnson, Title I funding. Mm-hmm. If she's the one who's going to try to get rid of issues like, feeding kids, then we're going to fight it. And if that's what they're going to do, and then we're going to fight it, because who cares, frankly, about the form? We care about what it does, and we have to have that funding for kids. So that's why, sorry for my long answer, but I just don't know, because they say both things at the same time.
Yeah.
So you don't really know. And so that's why I've had kind of a wait and see attitude, because we want to fight for the money. We want to fight for kids. We want to fight for their opportunity, and not using vouchers or this kind of stuff to try and take away and destroy public education.
Let me be a little bit edgy here, but I know you can handle it, and I think you'll even appreciate it. You've heard before on more than one occasion the notion that if Benjamin Franklin returned to America after all these years, the one thing that he would recognize is education, because it hasn't changed much the way we do it over all these centuries. That's one frame of thought. The other frame of thought is what Donald Trump again has suggested, just blowing it up, just abolishing the Department of Education. What he put in its place, I do not know. Whether he start all over again, I do not know. But my question is, and I've asked this of others, but not of the president of AFT, Randy Weingarten, if Donald Trump did in fact succeed, we don't know which Linda McMahon is going to show up, I take your point. But if he did succeed as president in abolishing the Department of Education, like what would that look like? Like what would happen in this country if we just had no Department of Education?
So look, we didn't have a Department of Education. I mean, this is what's so ironic about this. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a department. The education was part of HEW, was part of health, education, and welfare.
That's right.
It was what Johnson put together as part of the war on poverty in the 1960s. So it's not like this is a department that's been here for 200 years. Mm-hmm. But you talk about Franklin, you talk about Jefferson, you talk about the founders. There's a lot of things that they did wrong. But one of the things they believed in is knowledge for young people. And that's what public education was going to be about. So you could discern fact from fiction, so that you could actually have enough knowledge and enough literacy so that you could take the role of citizen seriously in terms of civic engagement. And so what Johnson then did is say, okay, education shouldn't just be a province of the rich or the upper middle class. We have to make sure that we help every single kid, including, and what was he thinking about? The kids that he taught, because he was a school teacher in Texas. And the kids who came to his class, basically Mexican immigrants, walked in without shoes. The poverty was so intense. And that's what public education does. It actually creates an opportunity for all. So, I've seen some of these bills about destroying the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. So what are they going to do? They're going to move, they're going to try to block grant, or they're going to move money here, or Treasury does one thing, or this one does another thing. So what does it mean? I guess it means they're going to take away all of the testing and the accountability. and, make that state-based because, frankly, 90% of school funding comes from states, and states are the ones that regulate. But what happens if they take the money away? What happens if they voucherize it? They're going to hurt kids in red states more than in blue states because on a per capita basis, more of this money for kids who are disabled, more of this money for kids who are poor, it goes to red states. And what this federal role has been is to try to create equity and try to create opportunity. So essentially what they're saying to all those working class voters who voted for them is that this is a ruse, and they want to undermine and they want to destroy or undermine the one thing that government actually really does to help kids, which is provide the funding for a basic, well-rounded education.
I got about 5.5 minutes, 6 minutes left with Randy Weingarten. I want to cover 2 or 3 other issues right quick, so let me pick up my pace here.
Let me just say,
sure.
let me just say one more thing, Tavis, which is also we're gonna fight tooth and nail. So I'm not accepting what does it look like, because we're going to fight for kids and fight for this funding and fight to make sure poor kids and disabled kids and kids who are going to college for the first time, the first ones in their family to go to college, we're going to fight for them to have that shot. And frankly, that's where I think Americans are.
Nope, I think you're right about that. You mentioned Texas, and you mentioned red states. Texas is both. It is Texas, which means there's always a debate jumping off in Texas about something, and it is certainly a red state, as we were reminded on November the 5th. Since you raised Texas, let me follow you there right quick down south. I've been reading about this debate about Bibles in Texas schools. Quickly, what can you tell me about that?
So, my wife, who is a rabbi, and I did our first joint byline and did an op-ed about Bibles in Texas schools. And the bottom line is we can teach about religion, but that wall that separates church and state is what actually helps the free exercise of religion in this country. And we should not be teaching religion in public schools. Leave that for Sunday school. And there are a lot of faith leaders who weigh in the same way as, Rabbi Kleinbaum, Sharon Kleinbaum, and I did, because we want to make sure that education is about helping all kids succeed. So why would we try to say one religion is more important than another when in America, by having this since the framers, it ensured the free exercise of religion and minority religions and all and ensuring that parents and their religious preferences are honored.
Yeah. I've also been reading a lot lately, given that it appears we're going to have a Donald Trump, Elon Musk administration. I teed up a conversation yesterday with one of our guests. He does
seem to be the vice president.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you said that. I was literally saying to somebody yesterday, what happened to J.D. Vance? I mean, I have not seen J.D. Vance in weeks. I've seen Elon Musk. I've seen Vivek Ramaswamy. I've seen a bunch of folk. He's on a milk carton. He's on the side of a milk carton right now. He's missing in action. I have not seen, think about it. I ain't seen J.D. Vance in weeks. My point is, I've seen a lot of Elon Musk, so it may be Trump Elon Musk more than Trump J.D. Vance. Anyway, the point here is that with Elon Musk by Donald Trump's side, until they fall out, because trust and believe, they are going to fall out. It's going to be like two elephants fighting when they do fall out, because Trump eventually falls out with everybody. It's just a matter of time. But until they do, Elon Musk's presence raises a whole lot of questions about what the impact of Trump-Musk will be on the tech sector, which leads me to ask, what say you in the last 2.5 minutes I have, I'll give it to you, about the future of AI in education?
So I would say, and, notice on X and others, he has changed the rules. You're going to see a whole lot of people as much as Elon Musk talks about free speech, you're going to see a whole lot of people being intimidated, and I hope they are not, by what he does. The number one thing, so Elon Musk has gotten millions of dollars from the federal government that helped him stand up Tesla and SpaceX. Let's not forget what the Obama administration did to help Elon Musk become a very rich billionaire.
Indeed.
The second thing is, what they did is he spent a lot of money and basically used X as a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trump campaign to get Trump elected. And what was his number one ask? That there be no regulation on AI. Look at what Peter Thiel and look at what Elon Musk are doing. So I'm just putting on my social studies teacher hat, looking back to the 1920s. And who are these folks? They don't want these billionaires who run these big corporations, just like what happened with J.D. Rockefeller, just like what happened with Carnegie back then. They don't want any regulation. They don't want to protect people's privacy. They don't want any regulation about what AI can do because they want it to make themselves even richer. And so this is going to be a big issue in terms of who is the federal government for? Is it for the working class folk who voted for Trump? This is still a close election, but working class folk? Or is it for the billionaire class?
I hear you.
And so I think that's going to be the big fight in the next few months.
I got 30 seconds here. I want to give it all to you right quick. One final thing, very swiftly here. The UN, as you know, has issued a global alert, not just domestic, a global alert over teacher shortages. What say you about that?
This is going to be a fight, Tavis, between do we create a knowledge economy and an opportunity economy for all our kids or not? Teacher shortage means that we're not doing what we need to do to help all kids succeed, because at the end of the day, education happens between teachers and kids. Teachers are amazing individuals. I salute them. I have the honor to represent them. But we need to make sure we can attract and retain the best and the brightest in our profession who want to make a difference in the lives of kids. Nobody who goes into teaching gets gets rich. They go into teaching to make a difference in the lives of kids. We need to treat them better.
Indeed we do. As we said in the Black Church, to that last comment, amen. Always a good thing to be in conversation with Randy Weingarten, president of the almost 2 million member AFT, which represents teachers, paraprofessionals, school-related personnel, higher education faculty, staff, nurses, et cetera. Randy Weingarten, good to have you back on the program. All the best to you. And if I don't talk to you, happy holidays.
You too, Tavis. Happy holidays. And to all of your listeners, may you have a wonderful, 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 peaceful, wonderful holiday.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Nearly 200 people were killed in Haiti's capital Port-au-Prince in violence targeting voodoo practitioners. The UN and Haitian Prime Minister condemned the attacks as horrific and a monstrous crime. Luigi Mangione, suspected in the United Healthcare CEO killing, faces multiple charges, including forgery and carrying a firearm without a license. He was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and is being held without bail. The parents of missing journalist Austin Tice believe he's alive and hope for a reunion soon. Tice disappeared in Syria in 2012, and the State Department believes he's being held by the Syrian government. And if you're hoping for some extra money for the holidays, tonight's Mega Millions jackpot has ballooned to at least $619 million. The cash option on that works out to just shy of $298 million. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
New deals just dropped at Lowe's. Get up to 50% off select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees, holiday lights, and more. Plus, save with weekly deal drops on appliances, tools, and more. Valid 12/5 through 12/11. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
For the third straight week, UCLA has the nation's #1 women's college basketball team. The 9-0 Bruins have been ranked #1 since they upset defending national champion South Carolina on November 24th. UCLA is back in action Saturday at Long Beach State. USC's women's basketball team is ranked 5th this week. The Trojans are 8-1. They're at home tonight against Fresno State. The Lakers and Clippers have a nice schedule break. Both teams are off until Friday. The Lakers are at Minnesota. The Clippers are at Denver. The 4 finalists for this year's Heisman Trophy Award were announced Monday. Colorado wide receiver defensive back Travis Hunter, Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel, University of Miami quarterback Cam Ward, and Boise State running back Ashton Genty. The award for college football's best player will be presented Saturday in New York City. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I was so excited when I heard the sandwich was back. What's up? This is Mike.
And this is Celia.
And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich
is the symphony of flavors. You can always count on that crispy, tender, juicy chicken. It's so good.
My favorite part is the pimento cheese. Topped off with the honey, it all comes together perfectly. I like the original.
I like the spicy chicken fillet. But either way,
you're getting a winner.
The Chick-fil-A Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich is back with a bite. Try it with the original or spicy filet now for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Bad Ash Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Freedom is an endless meeting, so let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
It was 60 years ago today, December the 10th, 1964, I was born on September 13th, 1964. So just a few months after my birth, Dr. King steps to the podium in Oslo, Norway, to accept the Nobel Peace Prize, making him, until Malala some years later, made Dr. King the youngest person ever to receive the Nobel Peace Prize on December 10th, 1964. Again, 60 years ago today. I am honored in a moment to have a conversation with the MLK Jr. Centennial Professor Emeritus at Stanford. Our friend and brother, Dr. Claiborne Carson, will reflect on this speech, specifically how this speech, to his mind, was a turning point for both King and the civil rights movement. But before we commence with Dr. Carson, here now some sound from MLK 60 years ago today.
I accept the Nobel Prize for Peace at a moment when 22 million Negroes of the United States are engaged in a creative battle to end the long night of racial injustice. I accept this award on behalf of a civil rights movement which is moving with determination and a majestic scorn for risk and danger to establish a reign of freedom and a rule of justice. I am mindful that debilitating and grinding poverty afflicts my people and chains them to the lowest rung of the economic ladder. Therefore, I must ask why this prize is awarded to a movement which is beleaguered and committed to unrelenting struggle, to a movement which has not yet won the very peace and brotherhood which is the essence of the Nobel Prize.
That was Dr. King, just a taste of Dr. King 60 years ago today in Oslo, accepting the Nobel Peace Prize. Dr. Carson, it's always a delight to be in dialogue with you, my friend. How are you, sir?
Very good. It's good to talk to you. It's been a while, and we should be talking more often.
We should indeed, but I'm glad we've got these few minutes to talk about what we seem to talk about more than anything else, and that's okay by me because, as you know, I regard Dr. King as the greatest American this country has ever produced. That's my assessment. But take me back 60 years ago. Just set the frame for me. What's happening in 64 around the time that it is announced that King is the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, I think we have to remember that it was quite a surprise for many Americans that he got that prize.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it was because most people saw him in terms of civil rights in the United States, particularly in the South, the movement against segregation. And when we look back and see that his vision was much broader than that, one of the things that he was pointing us to is what became very clear when he wrote his last book. And he said, where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And it was toward a global community, that it wasn't just civil rights in the United States, but he was concerned about human rights around the world. And I think that the years afterwards proved him very correct, that it wasn't very many more years before we got to the anti-apartheid movement and the Olympic boycott and the Poor People's Campaign and all of these things that would not have seemed capable of the civil rights movement the way it was conceived at that time. But I think it's also important to point out that Coretta King brought a lot of that broadness into it. I mean, she had been a member of Women's Strike for Peace, campaigning against nuclear weapons testing, and she continued that. She was one of the first to speak out against the war in Vietnam, and she, even before she met Martin, she had been to a political convention, the Progressive Party convention in the 40s. So she always had kind of a broader view of things. And I think that Martin Luther King was kind of brought into the struggle because of his unique leadership capabilities.
Yeah.
And that became clear during that week after Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus.
Yeah. Dr. Carson mentioned Coretta Scott King. Let me just put a finer point on this for those who know his work. It was Coretta Scott King who singularly chose Dr. Claiborne Carson. Dr. Carson was just a kid. He was at the March on Washington, just a kid out in that vast ocean of 250,000+ people watching King give that speech that day. He could not have imagined as a kid then, about 19 years old as I recall, he could have imagined then that decades later, Coretta Scott King would choose him to be in charge of the King Papers Project at Stanford. He's now retired from that amazing work that he did for decades, but Coretta Scott King chose him to be in charge of all of Martin's papers and organizing those. And I have, as he well knows, in my office, a collection of every edition of that book, those books that they've put out, annotating and just bringing to life in a very real, researched way the words and the work of Dr. King. But I always want to celebrate that it was Coretta who chose him to be in charge of the King Papers Project. I got 2 minutes here now, Dr. Carson. We'll continue, of course, when we come forward in a few moments. So in these next 2 minutes, just say a bit more about this World House. You walk toward that line. I want to push you past it. Say a bit more about this World House notion, this World House frame that Martin teed up in that Nobel speech 60 years ago today.
Well, again, I think that what he was more concerned about, he had been traveling around the world by that time. He'd been seeing the appearance of the independence movements in Africa and how that was changing the world. And he wanted to make statements that really had to do with how are we going to move from civil rights, the denial of civil rights in the United States, to the denial of basic human rights throughout the world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that had been an issue, as you know, during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Because many of the colonialized nations fought on the side of the Allies in the war, and afterwards they were expecting, if the war was successful, that they would gain their freedom.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the next couple of decades was spent with nations becoming freer from European control, just as Europe was convinced that overcoming the Nazis was the point of the struggle. They were saying it was much broader than that, and I think Martin Luther King was among those who felt that that we should begin to think in that global terms. And I think after that, you can see him becoming more and more involved. And in fact, I remember talking with Bernard Lafayette, one of the leaders of the Freedom Rides.
Sure.
And he said his last conversation with Martin Luther King, Martin had told him, we have to make the struggle global.
Mm. Hold that thought, Dr. Carson. We have to make the struggle global. He's taking me now where I want to go, which is a more in-depth conversation about how this speech becomes a turning point for King and the movement itself. King comes back and says we have to make this movement global. We'll talk about that. December the 10th, 1964, 60 years ago today, King accepts and gives an amazing Nobel Peace Prize speech in Oslo, Norway. We are honored to have dissecting that speech Dr. Claiborne Carson right now on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking.
That's what we do around here.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
The revolution will not be televised.
This is Brother Cornell West. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm full of joy and delight to announce that I'm joining the precious family at KBLA Talk 1580, founded and led by my dear, dear brother Tavis Smiley himself. Yes, the name of the show is Truth Time, and I'll be working with the inimitable Nina Turner out of Cleveland, Ohio, sister of great vision, and we will be on weekdays at 12 noon. We will be following Brother Tavis Smiley's show. We will begin Monday, January the 6th. That's right, Monday, January the 6th. Get ready for a different kind of insurrection. We coming with Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer and Curtis Mayfield and Aretha Franklin, and gonna add a little Gil Scott Heron too, as Nina Simone sits at the center. That's right.
The revolution will be live.
That's what we gonna do. Please come with us on this fantastic voyage.
The revolution will put you in the driver's seat.
I went to My Computer Career because I needed job security.
Because I wanted a career in cybersecurity.
I went to My Computer Career because IT jobs are everywhere.
My old job was going nowhere.
I went because I didn't want college loans for the rest of my life.
Because I wanted a career for the rest of my life.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. Classes available online or in person. Financial aid available for qualified students, including the GI Bill. 529 college savings plans accepted.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in.
But we're okay with that.
You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with the esteemed Dr. Claiborne Carson, who Coretta Scott King chose to be in charge of the King Papers Project for decades up at Stanford. Always just humbled to be in conversation with Dr. Carson. Watching my time, Doc, is getting away from me. You were saying that King said to Bernard Lafayette, we have to make this movement, have to make this struggle global. It's clear to me, but more importantly, it's clear to you as the one who went through the King Papers, that this speech was, in fact, a turning point for both King and the movement. Tell me more, Dr. Carson.
Well, I think that when you start seeing Martin Luther King and what he was trying to do in the 60s as the forerunner of what happened in South Africa, the movement against apartheid. I was at Stanford during that time, and people in my class are surprised when I tell them that the largest protest in the history of Stanford took place not in the 60s about civil rights, but in the 80s about anti-apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a surprise to them. And I said that shouldn't be, because otherwise you're kind of saying that this movement that existed in the 1960s is all that Martin Luther King was about.
Mm.
And that's the movement was not concerned about the problems that are concerning us right now. Most of my students were not even born in the last century. I teach every week, and I have to remind myself of that when I'm talking about events in the 1960s, their grandparents were probably involved in it, but they had no clue about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to begin to understand where are they now, and then you begin to see how they're not that different from students in many other parts of the world who are trying to build a better world.
Yeah. I'm not going to ask you to rate or to rank, per se, this speech, but when we come forward in our remaining moments with Dr. Carson, I do want to get him to express himself on what he made of the speech that King gave 60 years ago today. I've said many times, if you think that King's greatest speech was "I Have a Dream," that's because you don't know his full body of work. It was an amazing speech. Make no mistake about that. "I Have a Dream," classic, and everybody regards it as his best, but that's only because you don't really know the rest of his corpus. King was on the road every day for years, speaking everywhere, and some of his sermons and other presentations, to my mind, are even better than I Have a Dream. But again, that's because I've studied this for many, many decades. I am no Claiborne Carson, but I do want to get Dr. Carson's take on what he made of what King had to say, how the speech resonated, what the response was to the speech December 10, 1964, as King, again, in Oslo, Norway, accepted, making him the youngest person to ever receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Our guest, and I'm honored about it, is Dr. Claiborne Carson.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes, and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year, I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you gotta make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and Dr. Claiborne Carson as we celebrate the 60th anniversary of King's Nobel Peace Prize speech today in Oslo, Norway. Well, not today, December 10, in Oslo, Norway. Again, delighted to be in dialogue with Dr. Carson. So, Doc, tell me about the speech. I got about 4 minutes left here. I'll give it to you. What did you make of the speech? How would you situate it in his overall body of work? What kind of response did the speech get? Tell me about the speech as you see it.
I see it as part of his broadening. I mean, he didn't necessarily change his basic message, but he just emphasized that it was a global message. There were people in the United States who were criticizing the announcement, saying, you know, why are you giving a Nobel Peace Prize to a domestic civil rights leader? What has he got to do with global peace? And I think he had to affirm the fact that that was part of his goal, and it had always been part of his goal.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a Gandhian. He was a person who had been influenced by not only the Gandhian movement, but the independence movements in Africa. And so all of those kind of came together. He went to attend the independence ceremony in Ghana.
Yeah.
You know, people forget that his role was not simply in the South.
Yeah.
It was dealing with the issues of the time, and that became more and more evident. By the end of his life, the traditional civil rights issues had been taken care of by the Civil Rights Act of 1965, but you still had the Poor People's Campaign. You still had other aspects of life, of the inequities in American society that he had to deal with.
Let me ask you whether or not this prize given to King, again, making him the youngest person to ever receive it, did it energize the movement, or did it make people, and you know this better than anybody, did it make people more jealous of King, more envious? He had a lot of haters, to be sure. We don't think of it in that way. He had a lot of haters, though. So did it get him more haters? Did it energize the movement, or maybe both? You tell me.
I think it did a little bit of both. I mean, there were people who were saying, that there shouldn't be that much emphasis on one leader. But on the other hand, the prize, he made it clear it's not about the money.
Mm-hmm.
He split up the money with all the other groups.
That's right.
And that was an important move on his part. He announced this during the speech. It's not simply a prize for him, but a prize for a movement. And I think that's the way he felt about it, is that when he returned to the United States, people from all the different groups got together to celebrate him.
Yeah.
It brought a lot of attention to the movement as a whole. Just as the speech at the March on Washington, it wasn't the only speech that everyone. I remember it was the only reason why I stayed till the end, is because I knew that Martin Luther King was going to come on, and I didn't want people to say you missed the best speech of the day. So
yeah, well, I'm glad you stayed as well. I got a minute here. What always makes me laugh when I think about it, I shouldn't say laugh, makes me smile, because I love Martin so much, as you well know. There are some people who receive the Nobel Peace Prize, or any Nobel, and that becomes their lead-in for the rest of their life. That is the thing for which they are known, having won the Nobel Peace Prize. We talk about Martin King so much and all that he accomplished. It's not until today, when we slow down on this anniversary, to really hone in on the fact that he was, in fact, a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. My point is that his contributions were so grand that even the Nobel Peace Prize isn't the lead when you talk about Martin King. I digress for now. I think you take my point. Dr. Carson, always, sir, a delight to talk to you. As you said, we should talk a great deal more, and I'm going to take it upon myself in the days ahead to make sure we do that. I love you. There ain't nothing you can do about it. Thank you for your time, sir.
Good to talk to you.
Take care of yourself. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Nearly 200 people were killed in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, in violence targeting voodoo practitioners. The UN and Haitian Prime Minister condemned the attacks as horrific and a monstrous crime. Luigi Mangione, suspected in the United Healthcare CEO killing, faces multiple charges, including forgery and carrying a firearm without a license. He was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and is being held without bail. The parents of missing journalist Austin Tice believe he's alive and hope for a reunion soon. Tice disappeared in Syria in 2012, and the State Department believes he's being held by the Syrian government. And if you're hoping for some extra money for the holidays, tonight's Mega Millions jackpot has ballooned to at least $619 million. The cash option on that works out to just shy of $298 million. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
New deals just dropped at Lowe's. Get up to 50% off select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees, holiday lights, and more. Plus, save with weekly deal drops on appliances, tools, and more. Valid 12/5 through 12/11. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
For the third straight week, UCLA has the nation's #1 women's college basketball team. The 9-0 Bruins have been ranked #1 since they upset defending national champion South Carolina on November 24th. UCLA is back in action Saturday at Long Beach State. USC's women's basketball team is ranked 5th this week. The Trojans are 8-1. They're at home tonight against Fresno State. The Lakers and Clippers have a nice schedule break. Both teams are off until Friday. Ray Richardson, more news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 15.